I felt like Hollywood is just spineless, en masse. And it really felt like, oh, this is a really clear indication that we're not the cool club anymore.
Carrey has been out here warning people that Denzel Washington might actually be danger from Hollywood. And when you look at Denzel's gone through in this industry, not to see what Jim means. Hollywood's full of people and when Denzel to play by their rules, it shook the whole system. Like he stopped being part of their so-called cool club, and they couldn't handle it. But instead of that move ending his career, it made Denzel one of the most respected actors alive.
You've never worked with, have you?
No, he's never hired.
Success at it burned some folks in that circle. Jim Carrey's been saying for years that this is exactly how Hollywood works, that the whole system's built to control people.
Denzel went ham on me. He was like, I'm the director. Don't you tell him what to do. And I was like, this is my show.
The ones who don't fall in line become targets. It's all about power. And Denzel Ben made him stand out even more. When you start to Denzel's story, looking at who's to tear him down and when, it all starts with the timing. It's not random. Bigger's at play. And Carrey seems And let's not forget what Denzel himself once said.
Making a movie is a luxury. It's a gift. It's an opportunity, and most importantly, it's obviously everybody here is talented enough to do that, but don't get it twisted. It's just a movie. Difficult in a movie. I'm like, send your son to Iraq. It's just a movie. It's like, relax. I don't play that precious nonsense.
Then he added, it's just a movie. Relax. Doesn't do that just artist nonsense. He even talked about his early grind before fame, working as a garbage man and a postal worker. And get this, he said he actually preferred his job, then go home. That's the kind of real world if he brings will start whining about Hollywood. Sounds like regular folks are out here putting in real work every single day. So what's there to complain about? And what's wild is he actually lives by that mindset. The man on social media doesn't care about likes, followers, or the whole culture game. But over and over, he follows his spiritual, not Hollywood's trends.
People will come up, oh my God, Mr. Washington. Oh my God, Mr. Washington. I watch every movie I go, thank you so much, it's so great. Treat him with reverence. I try them up to you when they know you. As soon as they see me, Mr. Washington, Steve, what's up, man?
Denzel admits that talking about God isn't popular in Hollywood, but says he's gonna speak his truth anyway. And this isn't some new revelation. He's been saying this for years. Denzel's been this way his entire career, solid, grounded, and completely unbothered. So when people say Hollywood's scared of him, it's not because he's out here trying to secrets or burn the system down. It's because he doesn't need them. A place where everyone's desperate to stay connected, independence is terrifying. In Hollywood, needing no one is the ultimate power move. Once you understand that about Denzel, all those weird stories of coming for him over the years start to hit different. There's a pattern. It's clearer than ever. So let's rewind to one of the juiciest moments. In Pompeo. Yeah, this one's wild. Back in 2016 of Grey's Anatomy. His wife's a huge fan, and Debbie Allen was the one who convinced him to do it. The cast was hyped. They knew working with Denzel meant their game big time. Denzel and Ellen fast.
Denzel went ham on me. He was like, I'm the director. Don't you tell him what to do. And I was like, this is my show.
During an intense scene, Ellen's character is apologized to by a parent during a seizure. They're playing the barely making eye contact. Rated improvise. She went off script, yelling, telling him to look at her while apologizing. Tension on that set, you could feel it in the air. That whole moment Ellen went off script, yeah, none of the dialogue. And Denzel wasn't having it. He stepped in fast, reminding her who was in charge. He told her, he's the director, and she doesn't give another actor what to, but Ellen did down. She snapped right back. That's when Denzel went off, saying loud and clear, don't you tell him what to do? And Ellen with, listen, mother, this is my show. Things got heated at set. Spread fast that she had Denzel Washington, then tried to flip the script into his wife. People couldn't believe it. Like, how did she think that would make her look good? The internet lit up and the comments were brutal. One person said, she's got one show, no major, and barely even knows her name. Meanwhile, everybody knows his presence alone speaks volumes. Harsh? Maybe, but not exactly wrong. And that wasn't even her first public stumble. Ellen used dark-skinned emoji in a documentary.
I can see where if people were secure, I'd get scared by it. But it's so much easier now in just the universe of color.
People called her out in her defense. She said she's married to a black man and has biracial kids. Eventually, she did apologize, saying, I can see where if people were, before explaining her intent. But by then, the damage was already done. And when someone later asked Denzel that whole Ellen situation, he smiled and said he didn't even remember it. Then calmly added, it's all good. Denzel moved, cool, and totally unbothered. He gave her absolutely nothing to. That's the thing about him. Feeds in public, never just online. But if you cross a line in the moment, oh, he'll check you right there and then. No hesitation. And the person to ever really feel that fire? Quentin Tarantino. There's even an interview where someone asked Denzel, "You've never worked with Quentin, have you?"
You've never worked with, have you?
Nah, he's never hired me.
Quentin.
He's never hired me.
Why have you not ever written a film for Denzel? What's wrong with you?
I haven't been that lucky.
And he shot back, "No, he's never hired me. He's never hired me." The host joked, "What's wrong with you? Why haven't you written a film for Denzel?" That playful exchange hinted at a real story hiding underneath. It all traces and tied. The 1995 submarine thriller starring Denzel and Gene Hackman. That movie was tense. Two powerhouse characters clashing over nuclear missiles. It was directed by Tony Scott, but behind the scenes, Tarantino came quietly to script doctor the dialogue. But what went down during that process? Let's just say it got real between those two. If you've watched Crimson Tide, you can definitely tell which parts came from Tarantino's pen. There's this random argument between two sailors about who drew the real Silver Surfer, and it's got Tarantino's signature written all over it. But there was one scene that hit a nerve with Denzel, and for good reason.
No, I haven't. You know, my thing with Steve Harvey is that he used his mama both of them.
Yeah.
After I talked at Def Jam, I went up and told him, I said, "Man, you're using my material."
Film, Gene Hackman's character starts talking about stallions, those horses that are always white, and Denzel's character saying they're born black. On paper, it's about horses, right? But anyone watching feel the tension on his lines. That racial undertone wasn't for Tarantino, always testing boundaries to as far he can push it. But Denzel wasn't here for it, not at all. According to a Premiere Magazine article from 1995, Tarantino on that scene and about N-word scripts. He tried to talk privately. Al wasn't playing that game. He told him straight up, "No, if we're gonna discuss this, we're discussing it right here, right now, in front of everybody."
For years now, talk show hosts, people on television, people in sitcoms have been hired by the government to just make you laugh, make you happy, and so you don't know what's really going on.
If you go deep enough into those characters, you realize that your own character is pretty thin to carry. Oh, he doesn't exist.
That said everything about who Denzel is. Fearless, firm, and never afraid to speak up when something doesn't sit right. And that was basically the end of their professional relationship. After that confrontation, Tarantino filmed. And Tarantino, who's worked with almost every big name in Hollywood, never stopped to cast him out for years. The tension between those two legends, one of Hollywood's most talked about Cold Wars. Denzel and just stopped dealing with each other completely. Denzel even joked later, "He's never hired me. Quentin's never hired me." You could hear that mix of humor and truth in his voice. Then, in 2012, something kind of ironic went down. Denzel ended up working as a production assistant on Django Unchained. The GQ interviewer that up, along with the old story. Denzel just laughed and said, "Ain't that interesting how life goes?" He explained that about 10 years earlier, he had actually approached Tarantino himself and told him to go. Denzel said, "You really gonna carry that around for the rest of your life?" And apparently, Tarantino seemed relieved to hear it. So, at least on paper, that old beef was squashed. But here's where things get interesting. Tarantino has never spoken publicly about any of it. Not once. No denial, not even a casual mention. We're talking who always had someone who will every creative choice he's ever made. So for him to stay totally silent was a lot. Maybe Tarantino genuinely moved on. Maybe he's just keeping quiet out of respect, or maybe deep down, that tension never really disappeared. Either way, Denzel has appeared in a Tarantino film, and honestly looked like that changed. Then came the whole Oscar drama, the night that had everyone Denzel in a whole new light. When Will Smith slapped Chris Rock, the world froze. It was chaos, cameras cutting away, whispering, the whole room buzzing. But during that commercial break, while everyone else just sat stunned, Denzel stood. He walked straight over to Will Smith, and Tyler Perry followed right behind him. Of them huddled up quietly. To Will, they actually prayed together right there in the middle of all that madness. Later that night, during his acceptance speech, Will even missed words to him. Though, he went to the one who did. He never said anything publicly about Chris Rock. Now, that doesn't mean there's bad blood between them. Maybe Denzel just saw Will losing control and felt like that's where his was needed most. Still, it's hard not to notice how that moment reflected who Denzel truly is. His whole life about dignity, composure, and respect. He's all about carrying yourself with purpose and grace, no matter the. Chris Rock, on the other hand, has built a career out of what no one else dares to say, and not caring who feels uncomfortable. Two totally digis colliding on one of Hollywood's biggest nights. That Oscar must made the between them crystal clear. And funny enough, Al had another unforgettable moment with Steve Harvey too. On Club Shake, Steve told the story of running into at a restaurant in LA during Oscar season, and what next was pure Denzel and sat Steve down for him. Straight talk, no shade. He explained the difference between being a movie star and being a TV personality. Denzel isn't being rude about it, but he made it very clear those two lanes are not the same level. Denzel walks into a room, people whisper, oh my God, Denzel. There's a certain quiet respect that's everywhere. Denzel's not to show off. He's been with his wife for over 40 years. 4 decades of commitment and loyalty. He talks about sacrifice, forgiveness, fatherhood, all the real stuff that matters. He moves in silence, but life private, and no one has ever been able to scandal to that kind of clean reputation in Hollywood. That's rare and it's powerful. Steve Harvey, he's kind of the opposite. Steve once said, fame feels like a pretty prison, and you can see why. He talks about how he has to rent out entire movie theaters of peace. How it has to be massive so he never feels trapped enough to leave. It's big, loud, a public. He's built an empire on personality, hosting, comedy, and that relationship image. He's the man who wrote Like a Man, giving advice on love, marriage, and family every single day on TV. Denzel, it's not about fame, it's about values. 2 big names, 2 completely different worlds. When people start digging into Steve Harvey's real life, polished in the crack fast. His marriage to Marjorie? Yeah, the timeline gets messy. It's been alleged that their relationship began while he was still married to his ex-wife, Mary Lee Harvey. Reports say Marjorie was even helping Steve with legal matters during his divorce before they went public as a couple. And Mary Lee herself is describing how painful that time was and how deeply it affected their children. So when you think about it, the man known for giving people advice on love, loyalty, and doing right by your partner wasn't exactly living by his own words. That relationship expert image starts to feel a little shaky when you line it up with the real timeline. And that's the only controversy around Steve. Comedian Mark Curry, with Mr. Cooper, has been calling Steve out for years, saying he stole his entire Halloween routine. The bit was based on real stuff that happened to him growing up. And then Steve allegedly went and performed it at his talk show like it was crazier. Curry said he could to face, told him straight up, man, you're using my material. But then easily turned around and did the same routine again on another show. In Curry's own words, my thing with Steve Harvey is that he used my material on both his platforms. That's not just a vu, that's bold. Steve has had the accusations, of course. People actually lined up. The similarities were just too to ignore. Jokes, the delivery, even the rhythm. It looked a little too familiar. That comparison has raising eyebrows everywhere. And that's what really sets Denzel. He moves in total silence, keeps his family life off the radar, and has been with the woman, Pauletta, for over 4 decades. His interpretation is built on honesty and staying true to himself, not the spotlight. He does it the chaos, the headline drama to stay relevant. Meanwhile, Steve built a whole brand around values that his real life doesn't always seem to mirror. So when Denzel at that restaurant, it wasn't about it was a quiet reminder of how things really work. It was about integrity, not image. And sometimes that truth hits harder than any lecture. And this everything full circle, because when people talk about Hollywood being afraid of Denzel, not that he's trying to expose secrets or burn bridges, it's that he doesn't need them. In a world where everyone's desperate for validation, can walk on is the one they fear the most. And that's exactly where Jim Carrey steps in about the independence, the refusal to play along, the courage to be Jim's his own version of that for years. Back in 2014, Jim Carrey went on Jimmy Kimmel Live to promote Dumb and Dumber 2. Doing the usual fun late night, he totally flipped the script. He walked out making this weird triangle hand gesture and even stuck his through it right there on live TV. The audience laughed, but Kimmel looked confused and asked what it was. And Jim fired back a sly grin saying, oh, come on, like you don't know what this is. Like Jimmy Fallon doesn't know, like Den doesn't know. You could feel the room shift. Even further, he said he was done with the lies, Illuminati, and said everyone to know what was really going on. The crowd didn't know what for lean in closer. He went on this wild rant saying, there's now talk show hosts, people on television, people in sitcoms. They've been hired by the government to distract you, to make you laugh, make you happy, make you docile, so you don't see what's really happening. It was half shocking, half hilarious, but coming from Jim Carrey, different. Was he joking? Probably. It's classic Jim. But then he circled back and repeated that claim, and that people were being used to keep acted in calm. Joke or not, with weight, because this wasn't just anyone saying it. It was coming from a guy at the top of that system who knew exactly how the machine worked. After that wild Kimmel moment, Jim Carrey started away from everything he once stood for. He dove deep into philosophy and sexuality, and suddenly, the goofy, larger-than-life comedian was talking about some heavy stuff, like how the self isn't real and identity is just an illusion. He told her straight to their face that it matters. There's no meaning to any of it. People were stunned. Some thought he was losing it, while others swore he was the only one in Hollywood finally telling the truth. He said something that really stuck with people. If you go deep enough into those characters, you realize your own character is pretty thin to begin with. Jim Carrey. Oh, he doesn't exist. That line hit hard because it's like a man behind the curtain and wasn't impressed by what he found. But behind all that, there was real pain too. In 2015, Catherine White likely died suicide, and her family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against him. It was heartbreaking, messy, and dragged for years. Every detail deeply affected him. During that storm, Jim quietly stepped back from Hollywood. The red carpet shows, the comedy, from all of it. He took on one dark, overlooked thriller called Dark Crimes. But after that, he poured himself in instead. It was like he traded the spotlight for silence to make sense of life through color, canvas, and truth. By the time the world started paying attention again, Jim Carrey was nothing like the man from The Mask or Ace Ventura. This mysterious, almost prophetic figure. Energy, ego, awakening, instant money. In interviews, he'd say things like, "The people we think we are," he meant it. Hollywood didn't know what to do with him anymore. He wasn't playing their game. Up somewhere, he carried himself with a calm that made him uncomfortable, like he was through everyone in the room. The same industry that once celebrated him for his wild comedy now didn't know how to handle his honesty. Jim talked openly about how fame had trapped him, almost destroyed his spirit, and how real peace only came when he let go of it all. But that's the thing. Jim Carrey and Denzel Washington representing to Hollywood. Two men who at the top looked around and this isn't it. Denzel founding in family. Jim founded an inner truth. Both of chasing and in an industry built on people nervous. So when Jim got the illusion of identity, it reminds everyone to stay humble and grateful. It's not just talk. They've lived the highs, seen the fake smiles, and walked away from it all still standing tall. And that's what Hollywood fears most. People who can't be controlled, who don't need them to survive. Denzel and Jim both proved that you can the spotlight and still shine brighter than ever. Now, is that both Denzel Washington and Jim Carrey have become of something bigger, the fake world. They've bossed to fame, and instead of consume them, they turned it inside out. These are men who could have played the game forever, taken the roles for the cameras, the checks, but instead, they chose freedom. Denzel stays grounded, keeping his circles, protecting his peace, and letting his work speak for itself. He doesn't chase you online, doesn't need validation from the crowd. Meanwhile, Jim Carrey turned his back on the Hollywood illusion completely. No more trying to impress, no more something he's not. He paints, he reflects, and when it's from raw experience, not performance. And that's the part that unsettles people the most. Hollywood runs on fear of losing relevance, of not being liked. Being for Denzel and Jim, they've got none of that. They already let go of what everyone else is still chasing. When you can't be bought, manipulated, and by fame, you become dangerous to the system that control. It's like both of them found peace in not needing Hollywood anymore. Denzel's legacy stands unshaken, built on integrity and timeless craft. Evolved into something deeper. He's no longer chasing, he's chasing truth. So when people say Hollywood fears Denzel Washington or doesn't know what to make of Jim Carrey, paranoia. It's power. Real power isn't about money or fame, it's about freedom. And both of these men figured that out long before the rest of the world caught on. And here's the thing. Once you really look at Denzel Washington and Jim Carrey side by side, you start to see how they tell the same story from two different angles. Both of Hollywood, both saw how fake it could be, and both to let the system define who they were. That's not rebellion, it's clarity. Figured out the game and they walked away still winning. Denzel's life on faith and staying real. He's that old school kind of Hollywood can't replicate. When he told people listen, he's not cheesy or teaching lessons. Family about you never see him breaking down for attention out for trends. He's proof that respect lasts longer than fame ever could. Jim, on the other hand, went deep into the soul side of it all, the mask, literally, and showed people that happiness doesn't come from money or recognition. He looked at the illusion of celebrity and said, "No thanks, I'm pretending." That takes guts, an industry where image is everything. He turned the spotlight into a mirror and made everyone themselves. So when Hollywood looks at like Denzel and Jim, they don't just see legends. They see a reminder that doesn't mean surrender. These are men who's in the middle of the machine and maybe that will keep talking about them. Not because of scandals, they represent something rare. Them in a world built Denzel and Jim did Hollywood, they outgrew it. And that right there is the real story nobody wants to admit. Jim Carrey also spent years speaking out alongside about certain vaccine policies at odds with a lot of mainstream media. Whether people agree with him or not, Dr. only strengthened his image as someone who refuses to stay silent. Even when it or not, Jim Carrey has never been afraid to go against the current. And that right there is where his story connects with Denzel Washington's. Men stared Hollywood straight in the face and said, "No, thank you." Denzel did it quietly, by staying private, being faithful to his wife, being humble in his faith, and delivering performances decade after decade without ever giving the industry leverage over him. Meanwhile, it loudly through raw honesty, symbolism, wild interviews, and deep philosophical statements that made people two very different destination the same. And Hollywood does men like that. Men who have outgrown this, who don't need its approval, and who can't be controlled by fear or fame. Once somebody truly stops caring about what the industry thinks, become unmanageable. And that's exactly what Denzel and Jim represent from the Hollywood machine. So, yeah, there's a reason people say Hollywood fears Denzel Washington. And Jim Carrey be one of the few people who actually understands why. Both of them walked away from the and found their own truth, something money or fame can't buy. If you made it, make sure to like, subscribe, share, or comment below. Let's talk. What do you think Hollywood's real problem is with Denzel and Carrey?